All right. Hi,
Hello.
everyone. Thanks for joining us today. This is we'll give a moment because this is live. So we'll wait a second to see if anyone wants to pop in to join us. But our topic today is around how to grow your social media team for your brand or your company, or maybe you work for a larger company and you're on a small team and you need to grow that social media team. We are here
Yes.
today to talk to you about how to do that and why that is so incredibly important, and really what it takes to do that because there are
Mhm.
so many different moving parts to think about. So we will go ahead. We're about 30 seconds in. We'll go ahead and kick off officially. All
Yeah,
right.
yeah, of course. So as Sonia was saying, you guys, again, I am Linnea. This is Sonia. We are from the Go Getter Marketing Group. And today we're going to provide you with some tips and give you a guide on how you can hire and grow a social media team internally. It's actually a question that we often get from a lot of our clients. We've actually managed some of their interns as well, that have helped out with their social media. But it seems the problem that a lot of our clients run into is, how do they do it? Do they hire a team internally?
Mhm.
Do they reach out to an agency similar to what we do? So, like I had mentioned before, today we're just providing you with what you can do and some things to think about when you're going to grow your social media team. So, want to kick us off?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to dig deeper into that because Linnea brought up a few points. We do often work as an agency. We're providing support to businesses, but some of those businesses already have marketing teams. So
Yes.
you yourself, you might be in that position. You might be in a position where you're either leading a marketing team or you own a company that you started
Mhm.
and you're trying to figure out how do I best leverage and grow our social media or even on a broader scale digital marketing presence. Yes, we may have some contractors or agencies working for us, but I also want to grow and expand internally. And
Mhm.
as an agency, I can say we've definitely been on the side of watching teams grow internally, but also some of that, kind of figuring out how to balance the workload and then
Yeah.
what kind of roles are important to be thinking about when you are interested in hiring. So the first thing to think about is, again, scale. And it looks a little different depending on whether you are that business owner and you've been doing things yourself. You're trying to manage campaigns on Facebook and Instagram and running your own ads. And you're trying to figure out how to do TikToks because that's the latest thing, right? Everybody's on top of.
Yes.
It's a lot to keep up with. It's a whole lot to
Yes.
keep up with. So it really is ideal when you're at that level to figure out how do I run my business and focus on what I need to do day to day
Mhm.
and then shift at the same time into expanding my team. There's a lot of different ways and approaches that you could think about taking to how you go about doing that.
Mhm.
So that's a little bit of what we're going to talk about today. By the way, if you all have any thoughts you want to drop in,
Yes.
if you have
Question.
comments, if you have
Yeah.
questions, we are live and we are happy to answer those questions. So feel free to drop in if you have any thoughts, questions, anything like that. You are welcome to drop it in and we will answer as we move along. But until then, we're going to just share again some of our own experiences and give you these tips on how to grow your own social media team.
Mhm.
So, tip number one again, if we're scaling as a, let's just say, small business owner, if we're in the small business owner environment and we are scaling our business for growth, then number one thing we need to be thinking about is how are we going to get that talent? How are we going to attract someone to our social media team? Now, through our own experience, we've utilized a variety of services and tools to help us do that. One of my biggest go tos is Upwork.com. It's a great resource if you're a small business and you're not necessarily ready to bring in full time support. It's a great resource to bring in freelance support. The great thing about using a tool like Upwork is you post what your job requirements are. I'm looking for a graphic designer who will create custom content for our Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever the case is, Pinterest, and you might roughly work 5 to 10 hours a week and all those other things. What I think is most important is that as the business owner, or even if someone is helping on your behalf manage the person that's going to take in that role, you've got to get really clear about what you're communicating in terms of your needs. So that's the biggest piece. You're not hiring someone to work full time for you, where they're going to kind of come in and start to figure things out. You're hiring someone for a very specific task, and you have to be very specific in helping them understand what you're asking them to do. So that's going to be number one of the really important things to think about as you're coming up with ways to leverage, grow, and expand a social media team that's going to work for you on your behalf. All right, so Upwork is one option. Let's have the intern conversation.
That's always a big one.
So I always I'm an elder millennial. Like, I'm right on the cusp of Gen X and Gen Z, right? So I'm the elder millennial, right? And any of you who maybe fall into the Gen X or baby boomer category, you can relate to this, because when you own a business, or sometimes even when you're managing a marketing team and you're like, well, how do we do this? The answer is often, oh, we'll get an intern and the intern will do it, right?
It'll fix everything.
Intern's not going to fix everything. Okay. So the biggest thing is interns are an incredibly helpful and awesome asset to add to your team. But similar to what we just addressed with using a service like Upwork, if you are bringing an intern in to help support your business for social media, yes, they may understand functionally how to create a cooler TikTok than maybe I would, right? They might understand functionally how to go into Instagram stories and lay out something that's just amazing that they use just with the tools within Instagram. However, there's a difference between understanding how to use an app functionally and technically versus also understanding big picture, how to apply that to your vision and ensuring that it aligns with your audience and your brand. So when you bring on an intern, remember that you have to communicate your vision. You need to communicate big picture. This is what I want to accomplish. And you need to oversee everything that they're doing every step of the way. Yes. They are an intern. They are there to gain experience. They are inexperienced workmanship to help you, but they are learning. So I'll share with y'all internally, like, a huge tool that I used when we were managing some interns is we would have the interns complete a report at the end of each day. Now, when I say report, I mean, we set up a Google Doc. The Google Doc had like 2 or 3 simple questions. What did you get accomplished today? Rate yourself as if you were grading yourself. A, B, C, D, E, F, or well, A, B, C, D, F. How did you do on your assignments today? And the final question was something along the lines of, do you have any questions, or did you get stuck with a certain task? If so, what was that task? That's true management of interns. And you really do have to remember that if you're using interns to help grow and expand your team and your social media presence, they must be managed. They are not going to operate on their own. You cannot hand them something and say, take that and run with it. Yes. You really do have to manage what they're doing. Okay. So far we've covered and how to grow your social media team, going the freelance route. Okay. Use service like Upwork. Fiverr is another great service. I didn't bring that one up, but Fiverr is a really good one that you can use to find support. But again, details matter. You've got to be really detailed in what you're asking them to do if it's a specific task or management of a task. Interns, number 2, you can use interns to grow your social media team, and that could be largely effective. If any of you have some experience with interns you want to drop, feel free to drop those in the comments. We
love to hear it.
Yeah, we'd love to hear it. We've had some funny stories throughout the years and just managing interns. And then we've had some stories that weren't so fortunate because, again, interns have to be managed. So you have some who will come in and do a great job and you don't want them to go. Yeah. And then you have some who may not do such a great job, and if you're looking at those tracking sheets and you're really looking for ways to manage them, you may find they're not really getting the job done. Yeah. So that's why it's also nice with internships to have a set start date and a set end date and be very clear on how you do it. All right. All right, so that's two, freelancer route, intern route. Let's talk about the VA route, virtual assistant route. So one of the books, gosh, I should have grabbed a copy. We have a bookshelf right behind us that we keep in the office, and it's filled with marketing books. It's also filled with just like great books about entrepreneurship and things like that. And one of the books on our shelf, if you've never read it, is 4 Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. And that book, for me personally, was very significant when I read it about, I don't know, maybe 8 to 10 years ago. I read that book in a weekend and read it cover to cover. And what I really liked about that book is it helped broaden my own mindset as a small business owner to using virtual assistants. Now, there's a lot of different ways you can go if you're thinking about using virtual assistants. You could go the route of hiring someone that's US based. And again, typically virtual assistants are virtual. They're not coming to the office to work with you side by side. So that's going to be important to keep in mind. But they're virtual working for you. And there are some companies that are, if you do prefer someone native English speaker, then, there are companies that are US and Canada based that you can find just by doing Google searches. One of the companies that I personally used in the past was a company called Hire My Mom. And I don't know if there's some business. Isn't that great? It's cool. Hire My Mom. But it was a great arrangement at the time that we used that particular service because we hired someone to be a VA who was just wanting to get back into the workforce. It's called Hire My Mom because, often people who create profiles on this site are people who are moms and maybe looking to get back into the workforce. Maybe they have an inconsistent track record work history, but they may still have, of course, valuable skills. And for the time that we use someone affiliated with that service, it worked out great. We had an arrangement, start date, end date, and it worked out really well. So that was our first kind of brush with using a VA. But I bring up 4 Hour Work Week because in 4 Hour Work Week, Tim Ferriss literally gives you the names of services that you can use to hire VA support. And I literally did what he said in that book. One of the services he mentioned was a service, I think they're still around, called AskSunday.com. I went on Ask Sunday and hired them. And it was a type of service. They were based in India. And you buy blocks of hours for service and then, pretty much communicate what you want done. In my experience, I found it was great to get them to do repetitive tasks, pulling reports and things like that aren't hard to do, but for me, a little tedious, not necessarily where I want to spend my time. I want to focus on strategies and other things, but need to see the reports to gauge what's going on. So sometimes it could be pulling reports. Sometimes it could be helping set up social media posts. Like we have a VA right now that works with Linnea and helps take on, some of the tasks off of her workload. Sure. So there are things that you can do, from that standpoint if you're working with a VA, but same thing as the others. Be specific. I don't necessarily need to communicate my vision to the VA because they're more task oriented, but we are very specific in when you do this task, here's what we want done. And a lot of times we will create screenshots to show them what we want done so they do it exactly right, or record a video, just do a video recording. Here's how you go in and pull this report. I'm recording myself doing it one good time. Now they know what to do and they don't have to come back with questions. So you want to look for ways to kind of leverage your time, especially again, as a small business. Now, again, I've been addressing things from a small business standpoint because we are a small business. That's relatable for us, but we also work with a lot of teams in larger companies, mid-sized companies, and sometimes those teams, even within a Coca-Cola, even within an NCR, other organizations, if you're working on a specific project, you may have a small team or small group of support surrounding you. So you may need to also expand with what you're doing or call in additional support. So some of the same things apply. Typically in those settings as well, you may also try to figure out, are we going to hire internally or are we going to hire an agency to also come in and support us? So you want to really think about what that looks like in terms of thinking about budget. What does that mean in terms of budget? If we're hiring or promoting internally, what are some of the roles that we need to fill. So Linnea, I guess what would you say are some of the roles that you've seen that are really important regarding like expanding a social media team?
Yeah, of course. One big one that we always talk about because it's just grown so much is a videographer.
Yes.
Or someone who can handle capturing videos, possibly editing those videos. Video's huge right now,
Yep.
and that video content can actually be used and repurposed in multiple places. So definitely videographer is important. Content development, so someone to develop content.
Yep.
They don't necessarily have to post it like we had talked about before. Maybe you can give it to a VA and they can be responsible for posting it, but somebody to come up with captions, photos, what will actually be posted onto those social channels.
Yeah, and they should be managing the content calendar too.
Yes.
Whoever that person is, and you decide what that title is. You know, the title honestly can vary across different organizations, but that might be someone who's a content manager. That might be someone who's just a general social media manager, social media coordinator. But that person who, you know, you got to think about who's the person creating the content, meaning they're drafting the caption. Who's the person coming up with the photo or video? So again, videographer's huge. I mean, huge right now. Or graphic designer, or if you find someone who can kind of do a little bit of it all. You know, we dabble in Canva quite a bit, but we're not graphic designers, but it helps us tremendously in sometimes even our coordination with graphic designers to have Canva templates in place that makes it faster for us to get content up. So having that person in place and then making sure that they are responsible for the content calendar, which is huge from a planning standpoint. And you have to decide, are you going to let them run with it or are you going to review it? What's the review process look like as you're starting to grow that team? We think content calendars are super valuable because it puts you in a position where you can collaborate on the creation of content. You may even have a weekly content meeting and discuss some of those things. And then it just kind of, again, helps you move things along a lot better. So yeah, I think those are some great roles. Let me think of another one. So community manager. That's a big one. Yeah. So, and again, sometimes there's a separate community manager. It depends on the size of your organization. In larger organizations, that's a role that's almost always there. The community manager is the person who's paying attention to comments, responding to comments, maybe sometimes doing outreach and building relationships, especially if influencer marketing is one of your objectives and you're trying to reach people as influencers, but managing what's happening within the community. If you have Facebook groups, community managers are also very important because that community manager is going to help facilitate the conversations happening in that groups, respond to questions and things happening in groups, especially if you have a larger group and people are communicating on their own. Those are all big pieces to think about. So again, if you're hiring and you want to grow this social media team internally, then you need to think about having, again, videographer, someone who understands not just how to point and shoot video, but they understand the nature of how that video needs to be created on social media. How do you design a video for stories versus a video for feed? What size does it need to be? How many seconds should it be? So making sure you've got someone who's versed from that standpoint. Graphic designer, again, some type of content developer, content creator, community manager in some larger organizations. And then sometimes to manage all of that, especially if you're a small business owner, you might be managing it. If you're on a larger organization, you may need to have a director or social media manager or strategist overarching all of those different roles and really just reviewing to make sure everything is moving along and they're thinking big picture. They're taking your company's objectives and goals and aligning them with social media to ensure that things are getting carried out. So those are really critical areas to think about when it comes to growing and expanding your social media team.
Those are huge.
Yeah. All right. So next topic. Let's roll into the next topic, which is just around like, you know, what's the next step in all of this? You've come up with your team. Where do we go next, Linnea?
Where are we going to work? Where are they going to work?
Yep.
So you come up with your team, and then from there, it is deciding, well, do you want them to come and work in an office? Do you want them to work remotely? I know we have some team members that actually don't live in the state that our business is in. So we can work with them remotely, or are they a hybrid position? So I know similar to what I do, I actually do hybrid. You do as well, Sonia.
Yep.
And that is both coming into our office space and working from home. Now, that does come with its, I guess you can say there are pros and cons to it. I know working remotely got huge with the pandemic, of course. And a lot of people found it very distracting. You're at home, so you're chilling, you're not focused on work. But also with working remotely comes the freedom of working remotely. But again, it's going back and creating a schedule for yourself, keeping up with your tasks. That's something that's very huge. But definitely a positive for me with working remote is you get to work from anywhere. And I think that's a big thing. I mean, no offense to our office workers, but working remote is awesome. I think it's awesome. You can literally work from anywhere on your phone. I can be a completely different state and I can get something done for a client. So there definitely is pros and cons.
And that's the beauty in social media, is that it is digital. It is online based type of things that can often get done from anywhere.
Yeah.
I think as the person who is building the team and doing the hiring, you really want to assess when you're in an interview process, is this a person that works well or works better in an office versus remote? And where am I? Where do I fit into that equation? So at our company, at Go Getter Marketing, we've always worked hybrid, and we've been around for over a decade, and that's always been our approach. Partly, probably for me as a co-founder at the company, that is what I do. So I've always looked for people who can straddle the fence of being able to do both really effectively. You've got to think about what works best within your company culture and what is that expectation when you are looking to bring in people to work on the team. If you are bringing in someone, let's say for video, sometimes that might be really important because you need to have them on site to help actually record. Or you might ask yourself, are we going to be responsible for doing our own video and tossing it over to, a video editor, not necessarily a videographer, totally different roles. So am I handing that over to a video editor who is just going to take our footage and create from our own footage? But a lot comes with that too, because you've got to make sure you've got the right equipment in place to produce high quality video. So I always like to say, like, when it comes to managing social media for businesses nowadays, it's like we're our own miniature production studios. And, we've got in our office the ring lights, the background lights, the microphones. We've got the podcasting mics. So it's huge, right? So you got to think about those things, really. Are you going to do it? Or are you going to have someone do it? And that stuff adds up. It can get really expensive. So you want to also be weighing, again, cost benefit. Does it make sense to have that? So think in terms of, when I'm hiring and I'm interviewing, how is this person going to work? What environment works best for them? If I am bringing in freelancers, again, technically, if you're hiring an independent contractor, they do their own schedule. You can't dictate things to them. So you also need to just, make sure you come to some form of an agreement of what does it look like to know that tasks are getting done? Are they submitting things to you electronically? Are you checking in through a meeting? What does that look like? Same thing as I mentioned earlier with interns. With interns, our ask was complete this simple little form at the end of every day, because we might not talk every day being in a hybrid environment, but we need to know, or they may not work every day either. Most interns, they may be working a set amount of hours per week. So how are you tracking that based on where their work environment is? So those are really critical components to be thinking about, again, when it comes to hiring and growing your social media team.
Yes.
All right. So I think those are some important tips to be thinking about. We are going to post this on our website. So if you want to watch the replay, share it with some of your coworkers, feel free to visit us at gogettergroup.com. We also, again, by popular demand, because this question comes up so much, we're working on an on-demand course where we're going to share a lot more details and resources. Be on the lookout for that at gogettergroup.com on our workshops page, because we do host several workshops in and around social media, digital marketing, and things you need to know to grow your business. So until then, look out for our next live. You can
Yes.
hear more about it. Either connect with me, Sonia, connect with Linnea here on LinkedIn, or check out our company page. And that'll keep you kind of in tune with, everything there is to know digital and social media wise. Thanks for listening, y'all, and have a great afternoon. And drop us any questions if you have them. All right.
Thank
Take
you,
care.
guys.
Bye bye.